which means we're talking closer to NFL 2023. Adam, our usual contributor, both on our website and on our weekly show. You can find him at @SpotterAJ on Twitter. Adam, how you doing this evening?
Really good, my friend. I hope you had a good July 4th today and everyone tuning in as well, too. And I know talking NFL tonight, but I can't help but keep an eye on my Brewers here. They might come back for the second straight day against the Cubs here. So just keeping a little eye on that while we talk a little football tonight.
I would love that because I've got my money on the Brewers covering, but that's a separate story. That said, welcome into our weekly NFL show. So great to have so many loyal viewers of the Butt Fumble Sports Daily Show as a part of this audience. MVP Metcalf, great to see you. I want to make sure I kick off the show by saying we are going to have a special survivor pool for all subscribers on TikTok Live. So make sure if you want to be a part of the Butt Fumble Sports survivor pool for the 2023 season, make sure you're subscribing to Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok Live. Everyone who subscribes will be a part of that survivor pool. We're going to do a lot. We're going to have fantasy football leagues, survivor pools, and a lot of other things to engage the audience here at Butt Fumble Sports. But wanted to make sure I shouted that out. Adam, is there anything you found in the NFL news this week that really caught your eye? I have one thing I wanted to touch on, but wanted to give you the opportunity to see if there was anything in the NFL world that was piquing your interest.
Well, again, with the sports gambling and the suspension of the 4 or 5 players so far, that was number one that they're kind of outlawing or putting in the verbiage now, what is accepted and what is not accepted. So 4 or 5 players get suspended, and then also Cam Robinson, that left tackle from Jacksonville, gets suspended for PED. I think that could hurt them here in these first 4 games.
Yeah, I was doing my research on fantasy football, and one of the things I always do is I evaluate the offensive lines, and I took note of that as well, especially with the loss they had. One of their offensive tackles just went over to the Chiefs. Means they're going to have a hole they didn't expect to have. Obviously, we've already gone through a few weeks of our NFL season projections, but I do think, Adam, you're absolutely right. That's going to play a factor. One piece of news that caught my attention outside of the gambling and PED suspensions that Adam alluded to is something I ranted about earlier this week. Jerry Jones, it sounds like, is getting a 10-part documentary with Netflix. Already our audience has heard what I think about this. Adam, what are your thoughts about Jerry Jones getting a 10-part documentary with Netflix?
I missed that somewhere along the way. I didn't see that, so that'll be
$50 million. $50 million because there was a bidding war between ESPN and Netflix. Netflix won out because they were willing to pay more. And apparently 10-part documentary. I don't know if this is his life. I don't know if this is just following him and the Cowboys and his day-to-day. I'm actually up for it. I don't care about the money. It's not my dollar. They're, if they raise subscriptions on Netflix because of this, I'd be shocked. So I'm more just taking Jerry Jones. I actually think is a really intriguing figure, but you're someone who may feel differently than I do. Adam, are you kind of interested to see Jerry Jones either day-to-day or a larger story about him?
I would be interested to see day-to-day, behind the scenes, him doing his job is what I'd like to see, or what he does overseeing, the football team, not necessarily the on-field action, but what happens behind the scenes. I would be somewhat interested into that, and I guess Netflix is thinking, with Dallas Cowboy fan base and America's team, which I don't believe they're America's team, but that's the moniker there. That
I don't believe they're America's team anymore either. Yeah. I think that's overplayed. That's from like the 70s and 80s, 90s at best.
The ship has sailed.
Yeah,
the
totally.
ship has sailed. So I think it could be interesting, but I definitely think that Netflix is looking at the fan base and what they could draw there, and this is what people want to see now. They don't necessarily want to follow a show season to season. They want these short 5, 6, 7, or a 10-part series on something, and they can get in and get out. That's kind of the mantra now with that. So I think they keep it interesting, but I would be interested to see just how he runs that organization behind the scenes.
There are 2 things I'd love to see from a Jerry Jones documentary. If they really pull back the curtain on, one, him firing Tom Landry. I've always been curious to, how did that really go down? What happened when he literally shot, or stabbed in the back one of the greatest coaches of all time? Probably deserved, by the way. It was time for Landry to go. But I'd be really interested to hear kind of the morsels that come out of that. Obviously, there's Jerry Jones versus Jimmy Johnson, which is a documentary series that's a 30 for 30 on its own. Like, I would be all for that, especially because I'm a big Jimmy Johnson fan. I had the opportunity to work with him at Fox and get to know him just a little bit, but Jimmy Johnson is awesome. And so to run him out of town like Jerry Jones did, I'd be fascinated by that. And then to your point, how does he run the Cowboys day to day with his family, the decisions he makes? He is a fascinating figure, and beyond that, he is the driving force behind apparel and merchandise within the NFL. He's a big deal maker for the NFL as a league. So I'd be really kind of interested to peel back, kind of the veil, pull back the curtain, so to speak, on Jerry Jones. So I can't wait for that documentary. I'm curious to know what our viewers think. Are you interested in a Jerry Jones documentary? Is it something that you're not going to touch because it's Cowboys? There are a lot of Cowboys haters, but good NFL content, I feel like, always sells. But Adam, just like we did when we talked about Hard Knocks, and if in a perfect scenario, who could we watch on a Hard Knocks? I'd like to kind of spin that forward on the Jerry Jones question. If there was one figure from the NFL, past or present, that you could have a 10-part documentary about, who would you like it to be?
Well, that's an interesting question. I guess right off the bat, and I know they already did a little bit. I don't believe the documentary. I think it was a one-part show, but the John Madden that they did, what I thought was really, really good. I think he was an interesting individual. That would be really good to follow behind the scenes. And then, like I said, I know they did that little documentary on him, but I think a global scope of his life would have been interesting to see. He's the first one that jumps off the page to me. I mean, there's so many figures and intriguing figures in the NFL over the years. I mean, you can go back Jerry Glanville. Jerry Glanville would be a great one to go through, right? That personality and that dynamic. When he was in the league, he could be another one that could be interesting to follow behind the scenes.
MVP Metcalf is saying the Legion of Boom 10-part series. That's kind of interesting on its own because actually, while some may hate on it, the Legion of Boom had a lot to it. The build up, kind of at their peak. Obviously, Butler at the end zone line, at the end line. You have the fallout of the Legion of Boom, and then you kind of have the Russell Wilson. This idea of the Seahawks could be a dynasty to all of a sudden only getting one and having it kind of all fall apart. That would be an interesting. I don't know if we get to 10 parts on that one, but certainly maybe 5 or 6. I am partial to the New England Patriots. We've already gotten a lot of things. We got Tom Brady and his man in the arena. That was awful. I actually thought that was really poorly done. I like the interviews, but I didn't care for like horses running and galloping and like lightning flashing. Like, I thought it was poorly done as a documentary series. But looking at the Patriots dynasty over that 20-year period of time, I'd be fascinated about that. I'm surprised that you didn't bring up the Green Bay Packers to go through kind of, again, a 10-part documentary about Brett Favre, his reign. He kind of conquers Green Bay, and then the end of Favre, and then you lead into Rodgers. I mean, you get plenty of material if you were kind of to cover the Packers over the 90s, 2000s, and the 2000 teens. There's plenty there.
Yeah, we did talk about that last week a little bit about the Hard Knocks. If you could follow someone around, I did say that those early years of Favre when he first came, and the wild child that he was when he first came there. So yeah, no, that definitely would be a good one too. But I think if you extended it over, I think you're right. I think you extended from Favre to Rodgers, and I could even throw Rodgers to Love.
I totally agree with you, and that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I think that's a 10-parter in and of itself. The only other franchise there are two that I can obviously think of that really stand out that could obviously have it. The 49ers, similar story. It's Montana and Walsh. They go through the coaching change. They go through the quarterback change. All that happened with that franchise ownership as well. And then I love the idea of getting more of the Baltimore Ravens from, it's not a 10-parter, but, I'm such a fan of that team and so many of the players that came through there. Maybe you talk about the defenses. Anyways, just something I wanted to rattle off as a thought. One other thing I want to do before we get into what is our weekly dive into a week of the NFL season and breaking it down like we do each week, I actually had one more thing I wanted to talk to Adam about beforehand, which was, Adam, this is the first season that obviously we don't have Tom Brady. And the last time we didn't have Tom Brady in the NFL was 1999. Crazy to think this will be the first season without him since 1999. And I wanted to test your knowledge a little bit, Adam, as an NFL fan. And I pulled up some stats from 1999, and I wanted to see if you would get these right. Everyone who's watching on TikTok Live, YouTube, Twitch, or Kick, play along at home. Let's see if you can name these players and the stat leaders the last time Tom Brady wasn't in the NFL, which was, again, 1999. Ready to go, Adam?
Yeah, fire away.
Okay, in 1999, who was the passing touchdown leader?
Off the top of my head, I would have to say Kurt Warner with the Greatest Show on Turf.
That is correct, Kurt Warner. I'm assuming most of you guys had that. 41 passing touchdowns for Kurt Warner as he was MVP. Now, on the other side of things, Adam, who had the most interceptions thrown in 1999?
Well, I'm going to have to go with my man, Brett Favre, since he was like the interception king.
Yeah, so, always a good guess.
Yeah, so that's usually a pretty good one there. But, yeah, I would go with Favre, but I'm trying to think offhand. Who else would be in that 99
Just
class
so you know, Brett Favre was second. He barely got beat. He had 23 interceptions and just barely lost. So you were on the right track, but not quite.
Yep.
What do you guys think at home? Put in your picks. Who do you guys, playing along, no cheating, who had the most interceptions thrown in 1999, playing a little game the last time Tom Brady wasn't in the NFL? Who were the stat leaders? Just to give you guys to knock out some of the potential players you would think about, Brett Favre had 23. He was second. Drew Bledsoe had 21. Maybe one of the reasons Tom Brady ended up taking his job in years to come. He had 21 interceptions. Dan Marino had 17. Doug Flutie had 16. But for all those playing at home, the number one highest interception thrower of the year 1999 was Jake the Snake Plummer with 24.
Wow. Sneaky one there for sure.
Right? Just like Jake the Snake would be, a sneaky play. Okay, here's another one for you. Who had the most rushing yards in 1999?
Rushing yards of quarterbacks?
No. Rushing yards of a running back. Rushing yards in total.
No way. Rushing yards in total in 1999.
I will give you a hint on this one. This player was named AP Offensive Rookie of the Year.
AP Offensive Rookie of the Year. I would... the first person I would think of to come to mind might be Marshall Faulk, but I think he got a lot of yards.
He was Offensive Player of the Year, but he was not. No, he was not. You're on the right track, but he was not the highest. He was not the leading rusher that year. I will give you another hint if you'd like it.
Sure.
This player replaced Marshall Faulk.
Adrian James.
There you go. There you go.
That was too easy. That was too easy.
Too easy a hint for all those out there.
Yeah.
Okay, now this is a harder one. That's why I gave that easier hint. Who had the most rushing touchdowns in 1999?
Most rushing touchdowns in 99.
And it's neither one of those players.
God, I want to say 99. Was that the year before or after Eddie George had a really big year for rushing touchdowns?
Not Eddie George.
Not Eddie George.
We'll give you one more guess and then we'll answer it.
What about... I know towards the end of the 90s he played pretty decent. What about Emmitt Smith?
Oh, it's a good guess, but no. It's Stephen Davis.
Oh, I never would have got that.
Right. That's why I was setting you up there. Stephen Davis with 17 touchdowns. Okay, we're going to do a few more of these. Again, just a fun little exercise, a fun game. The last time Tom Brady wasn't in the NFL was 1999. Testing your knowledge about the last time Tom Brady wasn't in the league, the stat leaders. You guys can play along at home as I challenge Adam. Obviously, I have the easier job. I have the notes. Adam being put on the spot here is a good sport. Who had the most receiving yards in the NFL? Hint, we've already talked about his team.
The most receiving yards in the NFL. If we talked about, if I had to guess, I would say that would be somewhere along the lines of Kurt Warner.
No. Wrong team. Try again. We didn't talk about it. We talked about a teammate of his. I'll put it that way.
We didn't talk about a teammate of his, but we didn't talk about the Vikings because I would have guessed Randy Moss. What have we talked about so far? We talked about
The Colts.
Harrison.
There you go. Marvin Harrison, 1,663 yards. And we have two more of these. Who had the most receiving touchdowns that year? I'll give you one guess on this.
I'm going to go with Kurt Warner's guy, Isaac Bruce.
It was Chris Carter. 13 touchdowns for Chris Carter.
Oh, yeah. A touchdown maker.
Impressive. Okay, and here's the last question for you, since we've had enough fun at your expense. There were 5 players in 1999 who had 7 interceptions. Give me just one of them, Adam.
It had 7. Was Darrelle Revis in there?
This is 1999.
Yeah, he was before that. 1999 interceptions. I'm gonna say 899 would have been pretty good defense. Let's go with Pittsburgh. Let's go with Rod Woodson towards the end of his career. I think
Bingo! Rod Woodson, 7 interceptions, was one of 5 players with 7. You redeem yourself, Adam, with one fell swoop. What a move!
He's pretty decent there towards the end of the late 90s. The Steelers defense was pretty good.
Donnie Abraham, James Hasty, Sam Madison, who I was a big fan of, Troy Vincent, who now obviously is in a different role with the NFL, and Rod Woodson, the Hall of Famer. Well done, Adam. Very well done.
Donnie Abraham. Wow.
I know.
Hasty. Wow.
And that's why I wanted to bring up that exercise in that game for everybody, because you go, man, Tom Brady has been in the league so long that some of those names, that was Edgerrin James's rookie year, was the last time Tom Brady wasn't in the NFL. Crazy to me.
That is crazy, yeah.
And now we turn our attention from Tom Brady's time in the NFL to this upcoming season in the NFL. And for those who have been watching on TikTok Live, YouTube, Twitch, and Kick each and every week, by the way, one of our viewers wasn't even born in 1999. Adam, roll your eyes at that one.
Yeah, I just did.
But that said, we are making our way through the entire 2023 NFL season, one show at a time. We are going through 1 week for each show and building out our future bets based off of our picks week by week. It's just Adam and myself this week, so we'll be pretty quick about it. That's why we played that game to start off the show. But as we always do, we will start off by going through the kind of timeline of the week, starting with the Thursday game. So the Thursday game for Week 5 is between the Bears and the Washington Commanders. Adam, kick us off for this week. Do you think Chicago goes on the road and gets a win against Mike, who isn't with us, Mike Dobbs 94, his Washington Commanders?
Well, Michael should be here this week because I'm actually going to pick them to win a game. Because I actually think Chicago's win against Denver is going to be pretty big for them. They're going to travel to Washington on a short week. Obviously, Washington plays in a short week too, but it's going to be at Philadelphia for Washington the week prior. So that game might be, which we talked about, could be potentially a blowout. So Washington comes back home on a short week, and I do like them with their defense to contain Fields just enough to get their win, which I think would be their second win for us that we have chosen for them for the year.
Right now, going into what would be this week, yes, it would be Washington's second win because they, according to us, got that Week 1 win against Arizona, and then they would have suffered 3 straight losses to the Broncos on the road, Buffalo at home, and Philadelphia on the road, which, by the way, I think we can all be in agreement about those 3 losses. And I'm with you on this one. I think this is one of the rare situations in which this year the schedule really makes a massive impact on the outcome. I would never, if this were a game on Sunday, I would not take the Washington Commanders. But on a Thursday game, again, yes, they're on the road before as well, but they're in Philadelphia. So that's not like a big travel, short week, nothing like that for Washington. The Bears, on the other hand, I think they've got the tougher of it. So I'm with you. We're going to give Washington the win. This is a 1-point spread in favor of Washington. My only concern here is Justin Fields could just go wild. And if that's the case, then obviously that's a win for the Bears. But I'm with you, Adam, on this one. I like Washington.
Yeah, same here. And like you mentioned, 1.5 or 1 on some spots. Vegas must think the same thing here, too. Like I said, I think that it's going to be all about the offense for Washington. It's the quarterback play. I think their defense is going to be, somewhat decent or above average that can keep them in games. It's just that they're going to be on the field a lot because I just don't see them scoring a whole lot of points this year, whether it's Sam Howell or wherever they put that quarterback there.
I definitely like what would be the under in that game. I think that'll be a game in which points are kind of hard to come by. Would not be surprised if it's raining. Doesn't that just feel like a game where there's going to be rain? Like, I definitely want this clip that I'm saying right now put on tape, like recorded, kept somewhere in a library, because I'm telling you now, I don't know anything about the weather. I don't know the Farmer's Almanac or anything like that. Bears at Washington on a Thursday night game. It is going to rain, and it's going to be torrential downpours. I'm guaranteeing it right now.
Yeah, you're probably not wrong about that. That does seem like a typical game that will go that way.
Doesn't it feel like that's about right? Now, that said, let's move on to what should be one of the best games of Week 5, and that is an international game that kicks off at 9:30 in the morning. That is the Buffalo Bills against the Jacksonville Jaguars. A very important note on this one. We have Buffalo winning at home in the previous week against Miami, and we have Jacksonville winning, but Jacksonville is going to already be in London, so you would expect they have a bit of an advantage already having been there. We have them beating the Atlanta Falcons and then staying in London. Wouldn't expect them to fly back and then fly back across the pond. So this could be an advantage for Jacksonville. Adam, advantage Jacksonville on the situation, advantage Buffalo on the team?
I think it's advantage Jacksonville in the situation, and I also think it's advantage Jacksonville on the team because Buffalo, like you mentioned before, that could be a hard-fought division game there with Miami at home, where Jacksonville, in all intents and purposes, should have a layup against Atlanta. So Jacksonville might be in a position where second half of that game they can sit a lot of guys and not having to fly. So Buffalo comes off a really tough divisional game at home against Miami. Now has to travel overseas to a team that's been there for a couple weeks. It just came up a much easier opponent than what Buffalo did. So I like Jacksonville in the spot. I think it's going to be a tight game. The line to me is a little odd for me. Buffalo minus 3.5. The hook on there is kind of surprising to me. But I think because of Jacksonville has the easier team, they're staying over there. Buffalo has a harder opponent to beat prior, heading over there, big game. I like Jacksonville in this spot.
This is really interesting because these are going to be two hot teams at the time, according to how we're seeing the first few weeks of the season playing out. We have Jacksonville going undefeated into this game, and we have Buffalo only losing week 1 at the Jets and then going on a win streak of their own. So these are going to be two hot teams, and this is going to be one of those games we look back on in determining the AFC seeding overall. I lean with you. I think Jacksonville is going to win this game. Now, I will openly admit, if I get my Jacksonville Jaguar pick wrong for the season, this will be one of those games we look back on and go, oh, yeah, probably should have just gone with Buffalo and been safe. They're kind of the more sure bet. But I like what Jacksonville built over last year. I expect this season they're going to come in very focused. Second year with their head coach, Trevor Lawrence, with another year under his belt. I think he's going to be on the fringes of an MVP conversation. I think he'll flirt with it at times. I don't think he'll be a serious contender, but just enough where this is one of those games where the winner of it will probably get some pub and some hype for maybe the following week as a potential MVP candidate. So I'm going to go and agree with you, Adam. I like Jacksonville on the win. I like Buffalo to lose. And again, I do think the circumstances, just like we did in the earlier game between Chicago and Washington, I feel like the circumstances are going to play a bigger factor. Given that the two teams are probably a bit more even on paper, the factor, the X factor is going to be circumstances, time, travel, injuries, and the like.
Yeah, I agree. And also, too, don't forget, we talked about it a little bit at the top of the show here, but this would be Cam Robinson's return game. So suspension for the first 4 games, now week 5, so he would be returning for this game, which could be a big lift for them overseas. No,
and it's a good point by you, especially because when you think about how if Jacksonville goes on the run in the first few weeks of the season that we predict, getting a few wins. By the way, I actually now think that Kansas City game's probably a loss without their left tackle, but we'll revisit that in another time. But if he comes back, that gives them a boost. I also think that kind of gives them an additional amount of momentum, and it means he's been healthy. You wouldn't expect him getting hurt, in practice or something like that, the rarity of it. So for an offensive lineman, that is. So I feel like that would also be an additional big boost. Really curious to see what happens to Buffalo over the course of the year. Can Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen stay on the same page? Is the window on that Buffalo Bills team closing a little bit faster than people might expect? So with that said, we'll talk about that obviously in future weeks. but we will give Jacksonville the win here. To move on to the first 1 p.m. game of the week, we will go to the New Orleans Saints going up to New England to play the Patriots. Adam, I'll just jump off. I'll start this one off. I like the Patriots in this game. I think, first of all, I like Bill Belichick going up against Derek Carr, especially in New England. I think New England's defense, I've mentioned this before, is going to be much better than people expect. And it sounds like DeAndre Hopkins is going to be a New England Patriot. He right now, the favorite to land him is the New England Patriots. Those odds seem pretty secure. They haven't jumped too much over the last 2 weeks. So if the Patriots have him, I think their offense could be better as well. So I like the Patriots to win this one. Are you in agreement with me?
Yeah, I'm really on the fence with this one because we've talked about it before, I'm just not a huge believer in Mac Jones. I'm not sure where this offense is going to come from. But you're right. If Hopkins comes there, that could be a big addition. New England's coming off of, I know we were kind of undecided last week, that game at Dallas, if that was a game they could pull out or not. But they've obviously had a really, really hard start to the season. So I could see them being dinged up here a little bit. And a New Orleans team coming to town, maybe Carr's trying to find his footing. New England's a -2.5, so I'm really on the fence with this one. New Orleans the previous week plays Tampa, which should, all intents and purposes, be a layup game. But it's hard, yeah. I think I'm going to flip on this one. I think I'm going to go with New England. I think you're right. I think Belichick at home, potentially, too, if they lose that game in Dallas, this would be an absolute must-win game for them. And I would take Belichick and his defensive scheme to shut down Carr. So, yeah, I'll flip. I'll go with you with New England on this one.
By the way, you brought up something that's really interesting to me. You asked, where are the Patriots getting their offense from? I brought it up in a show because someone asked on our daily Fumble Sports betting show, where are the Patriots going to get their offense? Who's going to be an underrated player across the NFL? Ramondre Stevenson of the New England Patriots is someone to keep your eye on. Whether it's fantasy or it's just looking at the season as a whole, Ramondre Stevenson is now the primary back. There's no more Damian Harris there to take away some of the carries. Bill O'Brien is installing a much more well-understood offense that's going to be easier to execute. It's not these crazy blocking schemes. I think Ramondre Stevenson is really going to benefit. They used him more last year in passing situations. So I think Ramondre Stevenson, that's going to be a big source of the offense. I don't want to overcommit and say, that's all of it. But I think combining that with Devontae Parker and DeAndre Hopkins, with the tight ends that they have, with Hunter Henry and with Gesicki, you just piece it together, play some good defense, and a 24-17 game, a 20-17 game for the Patriots. That's what it feels like. So we give the Patriots the win, we give the Saints the loss, and we move on here. Big game in the AFC North is the next one that we're going to be focused on, and this is nearly a toss-up according to Vegas. One of the best rivalries in the NFL, maybe the most physical game of the entire week. Pittsburgh Steelers host the Baltimore Ravens. Adam, I'll let you start us on this one. Who gets the win in what may be one of the best games and best rivalries in the NFL?
So Baltimore had the tough game the week prior with Cleveland. And I think we had them, I know it was split, but I think we had them losing, or do we have them winning that game against Cleveland?
We have them winning that game.
Okay, I was the one that was on the opposite side then. I thought they would lose that game against Cleveland. Pittsburgh, week before, at Houston, come back home. But to me, I think this is a statement game for Pittsburgh. I think this is the week 5 of okay, is this team real or is this team not real? And I think this is the game that they can put their statement and say, okay, we're going to be a player for the division, and we're going to be a player in the playoffs here. So I think Tomlin's going to have them ready to go at home. At Houston the week prior, like I said, you can't take anything for granted in the NFL on the road for sure. But I think Pittsburgh coming home is really going to be hyped for this game, and they're going to want to make a statement in that AFC for sure that they're going to have to be dealt with.
This is such a coin flip of a game. I can tell you right now, this is a game I will watch. I will not bet it. I will not put my money down on this game because it's going to be so tough. But if I had to go in any direction for this one, I'm with you, Adam. And I don't want to be too big on the Steelers because the Steelers, I like them. I don't love them. There are some people who are going to be bigger fans of them. I don't want to be on that bandwagon. But what I'll say is this. This is a very physical game. And I think the Steelers are more conditioned, more prepared. They are the better team for a physical game. Again, watch out for weather in this one. Doesn't it feel like there's just going to be rain at this game too? Just an old school battle with mud, slop, just trenches play. And if it's that, I like the Steelers. and I like the Steelers' defense. I like the Steelers' identity. I think Lamar Jackson is going to be good this year. I think he's going to be really good this year. I don't think Kenny Pickett is going to be amazing, but I do think this is a game in which the Steelers find a way to win. Lamar doesn't, and so I'm kind of with you, though.
Yeah, I'm not big on. I know we're on different sides of the coin in this one with Lamar Jackson, but I'm just not a big believer. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a great talent. I think he'll play well this year, but I just don't think he's going to play at a super high elite level. And like you mentioned, the other side of the coin, Pickett is still trying to find his way, but I really like what Tomlin did with his draft choices on defense to get that defense shored up and try to help their young quarterback. So that's why I kind of look to Pittsburgh here to kind of be a statement game for them.
The problem I have is I hate the Steelers receivers. Like, capital H.
Agreed.
I hate them. They're terrible.
Yep.
I actually think the Steelers' offense, from a passing standpoint, is more like the Ravens last year than almost any other team in the league, which makes me go like, okay, great. You have a tight end who I like. I like Freiermuth. And who else do you have? Give me one other receiver, one other target that I like.
Well, Pickens, right? They got
who I don't like. Who I thought was inconsistent. He had a couple highlight plays that made him appear better than he was. But in reality, he actually wasn't that great. He was okay at best. And so I kind of look at that Steelers offense and I go, to the question you just asked about the Patriots, where are they generating their points? Is Najee Harris really going to be that good? Is Freiermuth going to be that dynamic? Like, Kenny Pickett may take a giant step forward. Is he really that talented? On the other side, I think the Ravens did what I've been asking the Green Bay Packers to do for years. Go address the passing game. Go get targets. Go get talented receivers. And they did that. Zay Flowers, I love that draft pick. Like, I can't tell you enough how much I love that draft pick. And Odell Beckham Jr. And what I like is they didn't just get OBJ. If they said, oh, let's get OBJ and that's enough, then I wouldn't be as high on it. But the reason I'm high on Lamar Jackson is, one, they added receivers. Two, they changed offensive coordinators, which was needed at a certain point. Greg Roman had worn out his welcome. And finally, I think Lamar Jackson, because he's gotten the money, I actually think he's going to play smarter. I think that may be counterintuitive to some. They may go, hey, wouldn't he be more conservative when the money, isn't in hand? And the answer is no. I actually think now he knows he doesn't have to take the same chances. I think he knows he can throw the ball away, and he's still making the bag. So I think Lamar Jackson is going to mature in his play, and I think he has the weapons that'll make him better, that'll allow him to take himself to another level. And the dude's already been an MVP. So, Adam, that's where I'm differing with you. But I do agree, for the purposes of this game, I kind of lean towards Steelers still.
I would just put devil's advocate on this.
Yeah,
say it comes with a big contract, big money, comes a lot of pressure, and if you're not performing, not playing well, that can spiral out of control pretty quick too. So it could go either way.
Okay, then I'm going to counter that, and we're going to go at it for half a second on that, because what I would say is, one, Baltimore is a different market. If we were talking about Pittsburgh, I might agree with you. I think Pittsburgh, when it comes to football, is a much tougher market. I think Baltimore isn't that tough a market, either in media, in fans. I think the fans are very loyal in Baltimore. Very, very loyal. I don't think they gripe a lot. I think they actually put up with a lot that sometimes they probably should gripe more. But I actually think they're a loyal fan base. So I feel a little bit differently. I don't think there's going to pressure from who? Pressure from a national media? I don't think Lamar Jackson cares.
Oh, yeah, he may not care, but like you mentioned, the fan base, like that fan base, whatever right wrong you think about it, did it take the shine off a little bit with this whole contract negotiation?
I think Joe Flacco makes it easier for Lamar Jackson. Because Joe Flacco got that money and then turned into Sam the Eagle from the Muppets, it makes it easier for Lamar Jackson to get the bag and not be held to an impossible stand. If it was like the franchise's first big contract that they gave out to a quarterback, then I might agree with you. They've done this before and it failed. So Lamar Jackson's already coming in with better credentials. The only concern I have for Lamar Jackson is always going to be those legs. And I actually think now, again, I don't think he needs to be so flashy because he doesn't need to earn his dollar. He just made his dollar. So step out of bounds a half second early. You're fine, dude. You need to do that.
Yeah, well, you also got to still throw the football, too. So
True.
That's obviously been something he definitely needs to improve.
But I like their wide receivers. I love their tight end. I think J.K. Dobbins could have a good year. I still have some questions about their offensive line, but anyways, good conversation. Obviously, we could go back and forth on that all day because I think Lamar Jackson is one of the most polarizing figures in the NFL for actually not being that polarizing. Like, he's not that crazy off the field. Like, he actually is pretty talented. We can all agree on that. But we're all like, what is he and how we feel about him is really extreme. Am I wrong?
No, that's actually, the way you put that is actually pretty good. That's actually a good way to think about Lamar Jackson for sure.
We're going to continue our preview of NFL Week 5. And if you're watching the show or watching this recording on YouTube and you're like, hey, Week 5, have we gotten already to Week 5 of the NFL season on July 4th? The answer is no. You're not crazy. But Fumble Sports every single week is going through every week of the NFL season, breaking down every single game. That way we're going to build out our future plays for every single team with real analysis and conversation behind it. Yes, at some point, we'll kind of compact all of this, do our future plays on awards, look at who could obviously come out as good fantasy plays. But that is why, if you're looking up at the screen and you're like, Week 5, how did we fast forward to that time and place? That is why. By the way, Y.A. Tittle, Jaguars, can they win the AFC? Absolutely they can. I still think they're a year away. I still think they're in that transition year. I could see them ending up in an AFC championship game. But could I see them in a Super Bowl this year? Probably not. And the reason I actually say that is because the AFC is so loaded that I think their run of luck runs out in the second round of the playoffs. Or like I said, in the AFC championship game, the Chiefs, the Bills, obviously the Bengals. I could see one of those teams just keeping the Jaguars out of the Super Bowl. But they're not far away from it, Y.A. Tittle. Now, we want to continue our conversation around NFL Week 5. Let's look at the New York Football Giants traveling to South Beach to play the Miami Dolphins. According to us, we have the Giants coming off we were back and forth on this one, actually, between the Giants and the Seahawks the previous week. We had the Giants winning, so we have the Giants coming off of a win and being 2-2 in this game. Meanwhile, Miami, we have them coming off a loss to Buffalo and being 2-2. So a very important game between the G-Men and the Finns. Adam, where do you have this one coming out?
Yeah, I like Miami in this game. I think the Giants got that win. I know we went back and forth on it. I did like Seattle last week over the Giants, but for purposes, we went with the Giants. I like Seattle, sorry. And for purposes, we went with the Giants. But I think traveling out to Miami coming off a tough game against Buffalo is in a must-win spot at home. I think there's just too many offensive weapons for that Giants defense right now. Like I mentioned, I love Dayball, and I like the way this Giants team is heading. But I think this is a must-win game for Miami to keep pace in the AFC. So Miami's 4.5 right now. I think that's a little on the high side. I could see this game coming down to a 2017 type game, 24-17 type game like that. But I think overall Miami's offense is going to be just a little bit too much for that Giants defense down there in Miami.
It's funny, you're actually going in a different direction than me. I think the G-Men are going to get spanked in this game. I think the Giants are going to get whooped. I think they could lose by double digits in this game. Now, obviously, you can't bet that spread so early without knowing injuries and the like. But I think the Dolphins, to your point, they're going to need this game. And they have the better defense. They have the better offense. I don't like Daniel Jones that much. I think the Giants go down there and they lay an egg. I think the Dolphins are going to win this game more easily than people think. Again, I'm kind of on the fence like we talked about that Seahawks-Giants game. I could go either way on that one. It's more, do we see the Giants being 1-3 after 4 weeks? I think that played a bigger factor than probably should have. If we were just picking it, I think I just would have taken Seahawks to take the win, but we could talk about that another time. I just think the Giants aren't going to be nearly as good a team as we think, and I think Week 5 is where that starts to reveal itself. So I like Miami in this one. I think it's going to be a whooping, and I think this is also going to be a statement game by Miami because they're going to come off that loss to Buffalo. I think a lot of people are going to be doubting them, but that's a road game in Buffalo. I think the loss will be kind of understood. They'll want to come back, flip the narrative, and I think the Giants are going to be cannon fodder for the Dolphins.
One thing, too, to think about is as we get into Week 5 and 6 and 7 is the seasons are going to turn a little bit, right? It won't be very, obviously, huge cold, but the Northeast, the Giants have to travel to Miami. It's usually still pretty hot and humid in Miami through October and November, so that could also be a factor in that game. Anytime anyone goes to Miami, towards this like week 5 to week 8 of the season.
And additionally, for me, it's about the conditioning. So yes, it's the weather, but it's also about how good are the Giants at conditioning. And yes, Saquon Barkley, if he holds out, that's a player that, even though I'm sure Saquon Barkley is probably going to be fine, of all players to be well conditioned. But it's one of those in which I think Miami's going to be ready. I think Miami is going to be desperate. I think Miami's going to understand the Jets are on their tail. The Patriots are on their tail. They are going to need this win. And I think that, again, as long as Tua is healthy, I actually think Miami's going to put a whooping on him. So one of the rarities, I know you don't often hear me at Butt Fumble Sports talking about someone whooping some butt, but I think it's going to be the Dolphins put a smackdown on the Giants. Next game we're going to talk about is kind of an odd one. Two cats going at it in a cat fight between the Carolina Panthers and the Detroit Lions. This is a 5-point spread in favor of the Lions. Feel like we can be pretty quick on this one. Don't expect there to be an upset. We have the Lions 2-2 coming into this game. I feel like they're 3-2 after it. What do you think?
Yeah, same here. Carolina got their first win last week, as we think they would. Detroit had a tough loss to Green Bay, and now they come home. And perfect remedy to keep pace here is Carolina on the road here. So, yep, I'm with you, Detroit.
By the way, and I wasn't about them beating Green Bay. You guys were more about that than I was. So I could see them beating Green Bay, the Lions, that is. And then they have Carolina, Tampa Bay the following week. They could go on a nice little stretch and start to build out that lead in the NFC North that so many anticipate. We'll be quick on this one as well. Houston Texans and Atlanta Falcons. Talk about sexy, everybody. What do you think about this one, Adam? I kind of lean towards Atlanta, even though I'm not really sold on either team. What are your thoughts?
Are we talking Tennessee, Indy, or Houston, Atlanta? I'm sorry.
Houston, Atlanta.
Houston, Atlanta. Yeah, Atlanta at home, -3. Houston's still going to be finding their way with C.J. Stroud. And I think Atlanta's got enough pieces of the puzzle together that they're the better team at home. So I go with Atlanta.
By the way, I brought this up in our daily NFL, I brought this up in our daily Butt Fumble Sports Show. I think Bijan Robinson is a trap, everybody. He is going to be a high-priced fantasy football target, but I fear that he's going to hit a wall come week 11, come week 12, and right when you need him for your fantasy football playoffs, he will not be nearly as productive. So, if you draft him early, make sure you I would consider trading him midway through the year. That's going to be a tough decision to make, given what potentially his production is in September and October. But everybody, be mindful. Bijan Robinson is susceptible to the rookie trap. Just putting it out there. Next one is the game that you just mentioned, Tennessee, Indianapolis. Talk about dog poop on your porch kind of matchup. Where do you come out on this one, Adam? Are you taking the Colts or are you taking the Titans?
Yeah, Colts are -1 at home, and I think just because Tennessee, like we said, they're probably one of the top 3 worst teams in the league this year. You know what they do, tanking here, trying to get a high draft choice. Indianapolis has got some young players now, kind of on the upside at home with the running game of Jonathan Taylor, and Indianapolis' defense should be a little bit better this year. So I think Tennessee is just a train wreck. So we'll just go with the home team here with the Colts.
By the way, I agree with you, but if that plays out, the Titans are 0-5, well positioned to chase after that number 1 pick. But on the other side, we would have the Colts 3-2. Right, the Colts 3-2. And if the Colts are 3-2, I think a lot of people would start to talk about Anthony Richardson as a potential rookie of the year. So just keep your eyes on it, because if you wanted to put down a future bet on a rookie of the year or offensive rookie of the year in the AFC, Anthony Richardson might be someone you want to put a couple dollars on. Just putting it out there if he gets off to the kind of start that we are anticipating. Now, let's go ahead, Adam. What do you think?
Yeah, real quick. And just to that point, the team that they beat also has been Houston, Tennessee, and the Rams that we have. So it's not like they're beating.
I'm not saying they're beating the 2007 Patriots. All I'm saying is I think the ESPN and Fox Sportses of the world and CBS Sportses of the world and NFL networks of the world, I think all of them look at record first and then build their narrative around the record. So if a team is 3-2, they go, hey, this quarterback is doing a better job than you think, whether he is or he isn't. If he's 2-3, they go, oh, he's letting them down. You know what I mean?
Yep. I understand. Yep, no, for sure. I just think that it's one of those things, too, like you said, the narrative's going to be the hot team, but if you're really dig into the nuts and bolts of that early part of the schedule, it should be relatively easy for the spots that they have. And then later on, they can see them start to stumble for sure.
Oh, for sure. No, don't worry. The stumble will come, and it's going to come pretty hard. Okay, we're going to move now to, there are 4 p.m. games. The first one that we're going to cover, again, is one we can be pretty quick about. This week 5 is going to have some games that are going to be dogs, and that is Arizona hosting the Cincinnati Bengals. Adam, how quick can we be on this one?
Yeah, Cincinnati 7.5. I wouldn't be surprised to see this at 10 by the time this game kicks off in week 5.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they cover. That's how confident I feel about Cincinnati right now. By the way, I'll be this bold. If Joe Burrow doesn't play that game, I still like the Cincinnati Bengals, and I don't even know who their backup is, purely based on talent on the field. I'll take the Bengals eating the Birds and the Cardinals every time.
I can't argue that at all. That's as sad as Arizona as what it is in Arizona right now.
If you want sad, I nominate the Los Angeles Rams. If you're looking for sad, we have them 0-4 going into week 5. We have them hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, say it with me, dog poop on your porch. That's how bad these matchups are for week 5. That's why we're going through this week fairly quickly compared to some of the weeks where we really dragged it out. This one we can be really quick. I'll kick this one off, Adam. I'll really go out on a limb right here, and I'll just say that the Philadelphia Eagles kicked the absolute tar out of the Los Angeles Rams. Any disagreements?
Well, you can get them at -5.5 right now because that's the number that it sits.
Will I! I will jump on board with that. And by the way, Butt Fumble Sports will make that so nice because I'll buy that down to 3.5. I'll put 4 or 5 units on it, and I will just cash my ticket and enjoy my Sunday, folks.
Yeah, and both these games in a 4 or 5 window, they're identical. Cincy at Arizona, Philly at the Rams. And why is Philly 5.5? Cincy's at 7.5. Not really sure about that. But yeah, I mean, I can see this game
because I have more respect for the Rams than I do for Arizona. Funny enough, so yeah, I think it's more disrespectful to actually. Yeah. But anyways, it's fine. It's fine.
Yep. Philly rolls.
Okay, really interesting one now as we kick off the 4:25 window. A couple really interesting games in this late primetime 4:25 window. The first one is the Kansas City Chiefs that we have going into this week at 3-1, going to Minnesota and playing what we have being a 2-2 Minnesota Vikings team. And the reason this is interesting to me is this is midway through the transformation. If you only know the clock, when does Kirk Cousins go from talented quarterback into vampire who sucks at football? It happens around 4:25, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. So, almost a primetime game, at home, in middle of the day. It's kind of tricky. I'm going to say he sucks. Not as much as he could have if it were a true primetime 8 o'clock game. Then we would know he would suck, like completely. But I say he like half sucks, but I still like the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a 4-point spread. I actually would take the Vikings to cover. I'd buy 1.5, take Vikings at 5.5. But I'm going to give the Vikings a loss because I say Kirk Cousins just poops his pants in like the fourth quarter, like right at the time where it starts to enter like the 7:30 time on the clock. That's when he becomes a JV quarterback. Adam, looking into your crystal ball, do you agree with the pick?
Yeah, I mean, 425 Kirk Cousins is just a disaster, right? We know that already. But even more of a disaster is going to be that absolute horrendous
that Vikings defense
against Patrick Mahomes on a fast track indoors.
Yeah.
So just give me Kansas City all day there.
By the way, I was definitely like, which angle should I go with? Should I give Kirk Cousins and my, vampire speech, or should I just be like, no, it's Patrick Mahomes against the Minnesota Vikings defense? Because that in and of itself would give everybody the confidence to take Kansas City with 5, 6 units? I mean, come on.
Yeah, and I guarantee Mahomes in that game, his over-under passing yards will be 425, 430 probably easily.
We'll talk about quarterbacks for fantasy in just a moment. That's where we're going to finish the show. But I do want to get to the next 4:25 game. Another really good one, actually. And believe it or not, this is just a 1-point spread with the road favorite. The New York Jets are a 1-point favorite going to Mile High. According to us, we have the Denver Broncos 2-2 on a 2-game losing streak, but both of those games were on the road, so we have them losing their last two. Meanwhile, we have the New York Jets coming off a loss to the Kansas City Chiefs, and they're 2-2. Now, I would expect us both to be on the New York Jets, but some believe that Russell Wilson could be comeback player of the year. LRK425 in the comment section, put that out there. Adam, if he does, this would be a game he kind of shines through. Are you giving the Jets the win, or do you think Russell Wilson can deliver a dub?
No, like I mentioned last week, if you tuned in last week, I think this is where the Jets slide starts. Kansas City at Denver, and they got to play Philly. This is a really tough stretch for them. Denver's going to come off that Miami and then to Chicago loss, coming back home. And his defense, I think Vance Joseph's got his defense ready to go. And you know what? I'm not saying Russell Wilson can be like he was in years past. Obviously, we all know this Jets defense is going to be a top 3 unit most likely in the NFL this year. It's going to be tough. But I think a sneaky coach of the year candidate could be Sean Payton. And the reason I think that is because I think he can get Russell Wilson back to the level of play that you need to pair with that tough defense. So for this reason, I think the Jets going to head out there to Denver and have a really tough time moving the football. And I think Russell Wilson and the Broncos will do just enough to get this one. Jets -1, a coin flip, but I'll go with the home team on this one.
Adam, we were doing so well. We got through almost the entire show without a massive disagreement.
That's not much fun there, then, is it?
That would slam the rails down on everything. Because here's the problem. We don't have Mike to break the tie today, and I am firmly on the Jets in this one. I feel like if you told me Russell Wilson has a good first 4 weeks of the season, I can believe you. If you tell me Russell Wilson has a good game against this Jets defense, I just can't believe it. I have a hard time believing he's going to throw into this Jets secondary and be successful. So we're going to have to go to the comment section. I know we don't have too many people watching, but those that are watching, put in the comment section, are you taking the Jets or Broncos? Jets or Broncos, everybody? Give us your pick. Need your pick. Who do you like winning this game, Jets or Broncos? We are going to the audience to see who is going to win this game. Write in the comment section, Jets or Broncos. We need someone. Harley is taking the Jets, a.k.a. anything but the Broncos. That's clearly some anti-Broncos hate. But we don't have too many other people voting right now, so I think the Jets are going to win by pure default. Thank you, Harley, for coming through on my side. I'll slip you those $10 later. But that said, we will give it... Oh, Jorge, and then you ruin it. And then Jorge comes through and says the Broncos, and we're back to split. You guys are making it tough. We need a coin flip here. Adam, you got a coin on you?
I don't have a coin on me, but
if you feel this,
if you feel this firmly about it, like we said about last week about Detroit and Green Bay, clip this part of the show because this is where the Jet slide starts. So I'll give it to you if you want it, if you feel that firmly about it. But I just want the asterisk next to it that I was on the other side of the football game.
So the asterisk is next to it because that's what we've been doing to show everybody when we have a disagreement. We put the asterisk next to it so you guys can see. But we are going to let me get the better of this one, and we are going to say that the Jets win. And yes, we are clipping this off. We are making note. Adam is saying that the Jets are going to go into their tailspin right around this time. He's very wrong, but we're letting him have it. We're letting him know. So, by the way, I actually like your thinking on it. Like, if it were to happen, it makes sense that it would happen in this kind of sequence. To me, it's more, I'd rather not fade the Jets than fade Russell Wilson. And by the way, I love your take on Sean Payton. I agree with you. I could see him being a coach of the year candidate because I think the Broncos are going to be so much better than they were last year. But that said, I'd rather believe in Aaron Rodgers than believe in Russell Wilson.
Let me ask you this question: Who or what do you think the over/under will be in this game? This is going to be a low. I mean, I think
it's going to be low. Right. I agree with you. I think it's closer to like 42.5.
You know, Denver was in that like 29 to 33 territory a couple times last year, which was completely insane. But I think what's going to happen is that Denver's going to score a little bit more this year. Like you mentioned, I think I come up. I would say, if I had to set that line right now, I would say around 38.5 over under.
See, I set it at 42.5, and that just tells you I think there are going to be a few more points than people think. Wouldn't be surprised if there's like a pick six or a late fumble that adds to that point total that people, kind of blows up people's underplay because there'll be a very popular under. But we're both kind of in the same ballpark, which is, I think points are at a premium. And again, it's what gives me more faith in the Jets. They just have more weapons. They're a more talented team. Yeah. They're better on defense. They run the ball better. I don't know about the special teams, but damn, like where are the Broncos actually better?
Yeah, well, yeah, you're right. I mean, this defense could be better than the Jets if they played like they did last year. Again, remember, they played this well last year with that offense. It was 3 and out. This defense was on the field the whole freaking game, and they still were locking down football teams. So if they get any kind of offense, that could be a really, really nasty defense in Denver. And just real quick, to the point of Coach of the Year, Peyton right now goes off at plus 1,200. He's tied with Eberflus, and the leader in the clubhouse for Coach of the Year is actually, no surprise, the lovable Lions, Dan Campbell, at plus 1,000.
Which I feel like, first of all, is a terrible bet. Because Dan Campbell is already on so many people's radar that he really can't be Coach of the Year. He can only disappoint. If he lives up to he would have to do so well to actually win that because the expectation level is so high. He'd almost have to be like a 12-win team. If he's a 10-win team, I think a lot of us go, oh, well, we kind of expected that from the Lions. He's in a no-win situation where I think Sean Payton, a lot of people, first of all, Sean Payton probably deserved to win it a couple times more with the Saints, but classic, much like Andy Reid or Bill Belichick, when you get too good, all of a sudden you stop winning those awards because it's like, oh, yeah, we've already acknowledged him as a great coach. But Sean Payton is going to prove that Broncos team was awful last year because they had poor leadership. Like, yes, Russell Wilson, like, morphed into a god-awful version of himself, but they didn't have a head coach. They didn't have real leadership. If you just bring in the right general, I think they could go battle and win some games. I'm totally with you. So I think it's a great call. And if I were to put down kind of what is the equivalent of a longer shot bet on a Coach of the Year, Sean Payton would absolutely have my money. No doubt about it. And by the way, kind of living in that same vein, Bill Belichick would too. Because that's another guy where it's like, there's reasons for me to believe that last year was kind of an albatross, that was kind of an outlier. And now if we really look at it, if they just go back to bringing their team back to like wild card kind of levels, all of a sudden they're a head coach of the year candidate. And given the odds you're probably getting them at, pretty good.
Plus 3,000 right now is Belichick.
Right? Belichick are plus 3,000. And could I see them having a bounce back year? Yeah, because they got rid of Matt Patricia. They brought in Bill O'Brien. They get DeAndre Hopkins. The defense plays well with Christian Gonzalez. If that's a 10-win team, I think a lot of people are saying this is one of the best jobs Belichick's ever done. And again, at plus 3,000, just think about what we're betting on these things too, guys. You put down $10 on that. Think about what you're returning. $300.
$300.
Right. Pretty good.
Yeah.
For a season's worth of entertainment and biting your fingernails, not bad.
Yeah, and you mentioned it too. A lot of people forget about that Brian Mac Jones connection at Alabama. That could be something that could be like Mac Jones might have a sigh of relief that he knows what he's getting in Bill O'Brien. You know what I mean? So that very well could be. I mean, there's plus 3,000 for Belichick. Like I said, I know the Patriots have a little ways to go, but that's still, I mean, it's still Bill Belichick for crying out loud. It's not like he's forgot how to do this.
That's exactly right. That is like saying, okay, I know it's Vince Lombardi on the Washington Redskins, but I'll take a chance on it. Because purely by name, reputation, you know you're going to get more from him than what people expect. And again, plus 3,000, go for it. By the way, Jorge brings up a great point. I feel like that Jets, you lock down Garrett Wilson, then you have a defensive battle. And he said Patrick Surtain II against Garrett Wilson is going to be must-see TV. I totally agree with you. And not just that, I think that Jets-Broncos game may feature the two best cornerbacks in the NFL. Because I think Patrick Surtain Jr., or Patrick Surtain II, rather, I don't think he's as good as Sauce Gardner, but he's pretty darn close. I think it really is like 1 and 1A. So I think that could feature the two best cornerbacks in the league. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, no, I agree. And, I'm not going to tell you anything you don't know. If you have a lockdown corner, that just opens up your defensive coordinator to do whatever he wants to do. If you can take away their best weapon, that just makes your defense that much better. So, yeah, a very good point.
And by the way, actually, going back to Belichick, because I bring up Belichick as many times as I can since I'm paid by the family on per reference. But the reason I always think of Belichick when it comes to a lockdown corner, what Belichick and the Patriots would always do is they wouldn't put their lockdown corner on your number one. He would put his lockdown corner on your number two, and then he would put the second corner and safety help on your number one, making even that much harder to go target Tyreek Hill, that much harder to target Marvin Harrison. And I actually think that is something that other coaches should use more. If I put Patrick Surtain II on whoever the Jets' number two wide receiver is. Consider him blanketed. And if I give Garrett Wilson a 2-on-1 the entire game, you can't throw under, you can't throw over. Every look that he has, every route that he runs, it's covered. So just something that defensive coordinators I wish would consider more often. Yeah, I like to see the one-on-one, number one corner against number one wide receiver, but in reality, there's still plenty of opportunities for the wide receiver to win that. When you put double coverage on that wide receiver one, gets him frustrated pretty quickly. So just something to consider. Okay, let's continue the party. We move to the Sunday night game for Week 5, and that is between the Dallas Cowboys going up against the San Francisco 49ers. Again, one of the great rivalries in the NFL. So, as we break down this game, we expect Brock Purdy at this point to be back for the San Francisco 49ers. We expect him to be back way earlier in the year, but just making the reference now. Obviously, the Cowboys, prime time, Dak Prescott, what are you going to get? You don't know. Adam, do you like the Niners? You like the boys?
So San Fran right now sits at -2.5 in this game. And then I believe, do we go unanimous on that one with Dallas being 4-0? Or no, you had New England. So we had 3-1 and or 4-0 coming off of that New England game. Mm-hmm. San Fran's going to come off an easy game against Arizona back at home. This is a game that I just see San Fran winning this one. I think Dallas on the road as San Fran is usually a tough place to play for them. And I'm not a huge fan of Prescott on the road there in that slow turf. This also could be a game that could have weather. You know, the Bay Area usually gets a little bit of weather out in that area. And I think San Fran, with their weapons on offense, will be able to control Dallas' defense. Albeit Dallas' defense is going to be a lot better this year. But I think this is a spot where San Fran can get the home win.
This is a game in which NBC is going to hype Nick Bosa and Micah Parsons on the same field. I expect Micah Parsons doesn't have the kind of game we expect. Trent Williams has a great game. That Shanahan comes up with a brilliant game plan and gets the ball out of Purdy's hands fast to Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey. I'm with you on this one. I fully expect San Francisco to win this game. Like you mentioned, we have Dallas coming off that game against New England. Now, yes, we did give Dallas the win. I fought that one as much as possible. But we have Dallas 4-0. Do I have Dallas going 5-0? You got to be kidding me. No frickin' way. Sooner or later, Dak Prescott is going to poop his pants. The Cowboys are going to turn into the Cowboys. And I think this is a classic situation of Kyle Shanahan against Mike McCarthy. I'll take the brains over the big body. I'll take Kyle Shanahan's genius, get the ball out, make Micah Parsons. Look at what the Eagles did. You make Micah Parsons have to run around a lot. He's not as effective. He runs into a left tackle when he does try to make his moves. I just think this is an opportunity for the 49ers to continue to build. We have them on a 3-game winning streak going into this game. I like it continuing. Adam, just give me a score on it since the spread's set at 2.5.
Yeah, you said real quick that this could be a very Deebo Samuel type game, and if not, using him as decoy and Ayuk could be hitting slants across the middle there too. So to me, I think San Fran controls this game fairly easily, and I'm thinking 24-13, somewhere in that window.
By the way, this is one of those games where we're going to find out if that draft pick of the Cowboys in the late first round, Mazi Smith, I believe is his name, the defensive tackle from the Michigan Wolverines. Yep. We're going to find out if that was a good pick or not, because they drafted that player to address their run defense because they felt like they were exposed, stopping the run, especially inside the tackles. This is one of those games to me where Kyle Shanahan goes, Cowboys, until you stop the run, we're going to keep attacking you. And to your point, and then we're going to play action, and then we'll beat you 5 other ways. But you're going to have to prove to us that you can stop the run, and then we'll start to throw on you. And I think the Cowboys are going to struggle with it. So we're in agreement on this one. We've only had one really strong disagreement in the entire show so far. Now we get to your favorite team, and I don't think we're going to have disagreement on this one because it's the Green Bay Packers on Monday Night Football, traveling to Vegas to play the Raiders. Jordan Love, we have him at an astonishing 3-1. Barf. Meanwhile, we have the Las Vegas Raiders. We have them at 1-3. Adam, I feel like I know where you're going on this one. You could take the cheese head off right now and just try to play this one impartial, but how do you feel like this game is going to play out?
So how I feel like this game is going to play out is I think that Detroit's going to be a big win the week before for Jordan Love. and I think heading to Las Vegas is going to be a little bit of a stumble. And
Oh, wow.
I think that, and the reason I think that Vegas is -1.5, but Devontae Adams now plays for Las Vegas.
Oh.
Devontae Adams has seen a lot of Jordan Love. Has seen all of Jordan Love. So he's going to be able to help and give Vegas what they need to defend against Jordan Love and what his deficiencies are. So I think Devontae Adams actually is going to be a big part of this. And Devontae Adams knows what kind of defensive scheme the Packers run as well. They know where the deficiencies are. So I think Devontae Adams is going to be the absolute factor in this one. And I think Las Vegas pulls out a win by 3. Close game, but they win by 3.
I freaking love that take, Adam. I love it. I love that you brought the spiciest take for the end of our predictions, because I totally agree with you. I think this is a great call. First of all, Jordan Love is going to suck. I'm just saying it now. Jordan Love's going to be a disappointment. He's not going to suck, but he's going to be bad. He's not going to be good. I'm saying it now. Jordan Love's going to be a disappointment. You guys are way too high on him. I've been fading him. I've been trying to fight you guys and give the Packers some more losses. But no, you and Michael have a little tag team between the Commanders and Packers. It's a little conspiracy you're building. All being serious now, I actually totally agree with you. I think according to how we see things playing out, Packers are 3-1. Yep. They're coming off a big win against the Lions in the division, and then Monday Night Football. The spotlight, the attention, the conversation, the narrative, it's all going to be about Jordan Love. And he is going to get overhyped to a obnoxious level. They're going to start saying, yeah, you're right to move on from Aaron Rodgers. Yes, this is another changing of the guard. By the way, again, whether he's played well or not, this is an absolute classic situation of the record will dictate the narrative. So if they're 3-1 going into this game, he could have more picks than touchdowns, and they'll be like, oh, he's just like Favre. Like, they'll find a way to make the narrative match the record. But this is where the narrative and the record will find its level. Because I think he's going to have a loser of a game. I think even against a bad Raiders defense, I think he throws a couple picks. I don't think he's at his best. I completely agree with you, by the way, on Devontae Adams. Maybe not as like a scout, but do I think Devontae Adams makes it his life mission to go off for like 142 touchdowns and absolutely smack the former team that he played for? Abso-freaking-lutely. And he's capable of it. He's actually a wide receiver who could do that.
Well, especially our quote-unquote shutdown corner, Jair Alexander, obviously, has been kind of vocal a little bit to the media, but behind the scenes about Adams leaving. So Adams definitely going to want redemption, especially against 23 on the other side of the football.
And you think about how it all played out between Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, and the Green Bay Packers. Who was the one who was the most insulted in that entire situation? It was Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams never did anything wrong. He just wanted to get paid. He wanted a stable situation in Green Bay, and they ended up shipping him out. Okay, fine. I think, now, it's not basketball where he can go off for like 50 points and play great defense. He is reliant on his teammates, but I also think this is enough time into the season for Jimmy G and the Raiders offense to find some momentum. I think Josh Jacobs could have a good game in this one as well. Packers may struggle to stop the run. That opens it up for Devontae Adams a little bit more. So I just love that you're not going homer on this one, because I agree with you. And I actually think, again, much like how we started this week of reviews talking about how the Thursday game and that early Sunday game will play a factor in the outcome because of the circumstances, I think the Monday night implications play a factor here, because I think the spotlight of Monday Night Football overwhelms Jordan Love, where for the Raiders, it might be good for them to have just like another day of rest, another day of practice. They may need that.
What are your thoughts on, so Devontae Adams obviously left because he wanted to get paid, but he also kind of dictated where he wanted to go because he wanted to play with Carr, right, his buddy.
Yep. What
are your thoughts on that? They get through the season, and Adams is playing well, but obviously we don't expect the Raiders to do a whole lot. You think Adams could, I hate this when players do this, but somewhat either kind of force a trade or say, hey, I don't want to play here anymore, not in the public, but to the point where the Raiders are so far behind that if they could trade Adams right now in his prime, it'd probably be quite a haul for him come trade deadline time. So I just don't see Adams sticking it out in Vegas for the next couple of years of this contract with how bad we think the Raiders are going to be.
I tend to agree with you because I feel like we got a preview of what could happen with Devontae Adams with DeAndre Hopkins. He gets traded to another team, he signs a big deal, and then he maybe plays a couple of years on that deal before that team's like, man, we're kind of in rebuilding mode. Like, we're not really contending for a title. Let's get out of this salary. Let's go dump it on somebody else. We won't get as many high-round picks as we probably should have because people are wary to take an older wide receiver, so we'll be grateful for like a third or fourth round pick when it's Davante Adams. It's like a future Hall of Famer, but that's kind of how the market will be. I totally agree with you. I don't think he'll finish his career as a Raider. The only way I see that happening is if, and this is one scenario I could see, I think Davante Adams is actually a really good, loyal football player. I don't think he stirs the pot. I don't think he's dramatic. I don't think he's like OBJ or some of these other guys. I actually think he's just a good quality teammate and a good quality player to employ. So would I be surprised if Davante Adams just kind of stays quiet, makes his money, and doesn't make a big stink of it? I wouldn't be shocked, actually. Now, I think that's still like a 20% likelihood as opposed to the team eventually wants to move on from him because of the contract burden. But he is someone that I don't think is going to be like an egomaniac pushing his way out the door like we see with so many other players.
No, I agree with that. And just the years in Green Bay, I would be hard-pressed for you to find somebody that is a Packer fan to be thankful that Davante Adams left. Like, I was irate when he left.
That's right.
He's such a talent.
I thought it was one of the worst moves that the Packers had made because in the end, what did you really get from it?
Yeah, nothing. We hardly got anything for it. And the other thing, too, that point is not only is he a good guy on the field, but he does a lot in the community off the field. Like you said, he's just a good guy. He doesn't cause waves. He comes in and just plays football, you know. And I just think that with the situation that we're in, I don't have any ill will at all for him and why he wanted to leave. And I understand why he wanted to leave.
And
he felt slighted.
Go ahead.
He felt slighted from the whole situation. And Rodgers was trying to get paid too. And honestly, you know, I think Rodgers and him behind the scenes might have had something there too because, you know, Rodgers pretty much was like not going to sign if Adams wasn't there, and all of a sudden, you know, obviously there's more dynamic.
No,
but then
there's
Adams
a Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs kind of grumbling, disruption, friction between Rodgers and Davante Adams because you didn't go from hey, I only play with that guy to okay, we traded him, and I guess I'm okay with it, and yeah, I'll sign another contract extension, and there was something to that. But I also want to call out something that you just said. We'll talk about a player, and we'll say, yeah, he's not just good on the field. He's also good in the community. Yes, I also want to add a third part of this. He's also a good in the locker room guy. And I mean, not just in the locker room as it's defined by, like, he's a good locker room presence. I mean, he just goes about his work. I don't hear about him. I'm not just talking about a leader, like he's vocal, he gets the guys rallied. That's a locker room guy. I'm talking about he just goes about his business. He just punches the clock and just shows up. He doesn't make a stink at training camp. He doesn't make a stink at OTAs. He just goes about his business. I don't care if he's building gardens in Green Bay. I don't care if he's helping blind children cross the street. What I really care about is that he's productive on the field, that he doesn't get into legal trouble off the field, and that, frankly, he just isn't a voice. He isn't a mouth. He isn't someone that I'm concerned with. Davante Adams checks every box. And that's one of the reasons he was like the perfect Green Bay guy. He wasn't about stirring the pot. He was about winning. He was about championships. I never heard him also like, I need my catches. Like, he wasn't saying that. He just wanted to win. He just wanted to have a competitive team around him. I never understood that trade. I never will. I think it's one of Murphy's worst moves as leader of the Green Bay Packers. So,
yeah, no, and to that point, as a good locker room guy, you know, the first 2 years he was in Green Bay, he was good, but there wasn't huge flashes. But to the locker room point, he's a hard worker. He's a head down.
Totally.
He listens to the veteran wide receivers, like when Randall Cobb was there. And next thing you know, the third, fourth year, boom, he flourished. And he was 1,000-yard receiver.
And you know he would have taken those guys under his wing. Yeah. He is not one of those guys, too, that's like, hey, I don't want you taking my job, so, you know, don't get too close. I'm not going to mentor anybody. Quite the opposite. Yeah. I've already heard him talk about Jacoby Myers coming to Vegas, being like, hey, Jacoby Myers is an underrated player. I'm really excited to play with him. Like, the Patriots could have used him more. That's the kind of teammate you want. Like, he's already building up his fellow wide receiver unnecessarily, too. No one was like, hey, Davante Adams, what do you think of Jacoby Myers? Do you really like him? Like, no. That's him just knowing how the game is played. And I mean that in all the connotations. Knowing how the game is played as a professional. Being the right soundbite, being the right teammate, being the right producer on the field. never will understand that one. And just to complete the thought, I think this game between the Packers and the Raiders is one that we go in talking about Jordan Love. And yeah, Devontae Adams will get some hype and there'll be an interview or whatever. I think we come out of this game going, the Green Bay Packers had Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, and it all fell apart like a sandcastle under a wave. And I think that becomes the Tuesday quarterback conversation of Week 6 is like, man, the Packers, they screwed up. They could have had it for a few more years.
Yeah. You could have had your number one receiver with your young quarterback. I mean, what young quarterback wouldn't want Devontae Adams as his number one target? Pretty much everybody in the league. So, yeah, no, I agree with you.
So that is our preview of NFL Week 5. Like you heard me say earlier, we are going through every week of the NFL season, picking every game. That way we can create an entire futures outcome based off of good analysis, good conversation, and digging deep into every single game. We will cover Week 6 next week. But Fumble Sports is live every Tuesday with our NFL Weekly Show on TikTok Live, YouTube, Twitch, Kick, and of course on Twitter Spaces. Make sure you guys are following us on all of our platforms. Follow us on Twitter at SportsFumble. Follow us on TikTok and YouTube, But Fumble Sports. As always, you can also find Adam. He does a great job for us at Spotter AJ. That's at Spotter AJ. He does a great job, and not just that, we are going to have him hopefully in our fantasy football league this year. I know he's not a big fantasy football guy, but we'll have to twist his arm and get him into it. What do you think about that, Adam?
That might be a stretch, Wyatt. We'll see. We can talk about that later.
Yeah, we're gonna have to peer pressure you into that one. But that said, so grateful to have you with us every single week, Adam. You do a great job. And again, hope you have a wonderful July 4th. Hope you're under the fireworks tonight and eating a hot dog somewhere.
Yeah, have a happy July 4th. Rest of the night for everyone tonight. The sun goes down. Fireworks will be aplenty, so go enjoy it. It only comes around once a year.
Now, I do want to say one more thing. By the way, Deadpool, thank you so much for subscribing. Deadpool, thank you for subscribing on TikTok Live. For those that do subscribe, 2 things for you guys. 1, you can be a part of our Fantasy Football League. We will have a Fantasy Football League exclusively for subscribers. And additionally, we will also have a Survivor Pool exclusively for subscribers on TikTok Live. So, Deadpool, thank you so much for subscribing. So wonderful to have you as a part of the community. You do a great job sharing your picks and takes every single time you jump in the comment section. Want to give a big shout out to our producer behind the scenes. Thank you so much. He did double duty today with our daily show and our NFL show. I really appreciate you. If you don't hear me say it enough, I really appreciate you being our producer of this show. Want to give a big shout out to Adam. Thank you to our audience every single week. You guys bring the energy, great questions. Hope you enjoy this good NFL conversation. And of course, we will be live again next Tuesday, everybody. So make sure you join us then. Until then, I hope you have a great night, a great July 4th, and we'll be talking the next Tuesday.